Today, Metropolitans far and wide have collectively had their minds blown as Francisco Lindor admits that he's open to be named captain if given the opportunity. But we're also going to talk about that right field situation. Juan Soto's in camp now. What's it mean for Starling Marte? What's going on, everybody? It's Flobo Boyce, and I am one half of the team over here at Mets Digest. Myself and Mike D'Angelo. Yeah, you know the deal. Listen, if you're watching right now, you like the channel, like the video, comment below. I do read the comments, positive, negative, and everywhere in between. And make sure you subscribe because most of y'all be watching the content without subscribing. We're so close to 4,000 followers. We need your help. Please subscribe. Okay, man. So we're going to talk about what's going on with Francisco Lindor in just a second. But the first thing I thought was pretty interesting, as it is right now on the 16th of February as I record this. Happy Valentine's Day if you celebrate, and if you don't, I hear you. Either way, candy's on sale today. Is that Juan Soto himself, the 765 million without incentives man, has arrived at camp. He is down in Florida, and he's ready to get down to business. In fact, as I record this, he's having his press conference now talking about what he plans to do for the team in the 2025 season. Of course, we're going to give you a bit of follow-up on that later on. It is fantastic, almost surreal to see that the Mets and their pursuit of high-ranking free agents have paid off, because Juan Soto really was on the top of everyone's leaderboard going into the offseason, and now he's playing in Queens. And plus, with Alonso back and Francisco Lindor trying to get themselves back into that mid-season, late-season form earlier than expected, we might actually have a formidable team. Now, Francisco Alvarez said he was the best team, best lineup. I'm going to rock with that, even though we know that basically all baseball runs to Los Angeles. But that presents a little bit of a problem with Starling Marte. Shout out to Joely Rodriguez for that. Starling Marte, one of my favorite Mets, despite the fact of his injury-riddled couple seasons, and he's been on the shelf, is a all-star with the orange and blue. But with Juan Soto going to be playing in right field day to day, it looks like Starling Marte will have a different role. Now, we alluded to this at the end of the season right here on Mets Digest. JD Martinez has done a lot. He's the hitting savant, but with pickleball or the next chapter on his horizon, or more likely having more roster flexibility the Mets need, it was almost a lock that Martinez wouldn't return. That would leave the DH role open to Starling Marte. And so we're kind of figuring out what was that going to look like. Will Starling even be in right field? We finally got a little bit of light shed about that this weekend as the rest of the team is heading over to camp. Shout out to John Flanagan at SNY TV for asking this. Following a third consecutive injury rattle campaign and the addition of superstar right fielder Juan Soto, the Mets have made the veteran, that's Starling Marte, available in discussions over the past couple of months. As a result, Marte is now expected to begin the year with the team, as he should, but he'll be playing a bit of a different role than the one he's filled the past few seasons, which Carlos Mendoza has been discussing with him this week. That conversation must have been difficult. Quote, he's at the point of his career where he wants to win. The skipper said he's willing to do whatever it takes to help us win ball games, whether that's coming off the bench or serving as a DH. There's a lot he can do to help us. Now, I don't want to throw shade because it's all about the great game of baseball. But over across town, the Bronx, there is somebody who pretty puts his foot down and says, I'm this kind of player. I'm a starting pitcher. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And Starling Marte is actually the opposite in this case. One is able to say, hey, look, I'm a veteran. I understand I'm older. I understand I have injury history. I want to be able to a team that does well. And of course, that goes back to the All-Star game a couple of years ago where we saw Marte and Soto having discussions on field. Makes you wonder whether or not it's part of the plan. But it is kind of sad to say, because when Starling Marte was signed, he was kind of seen as a big upgrade to the team. In fact, even though Billy Epler has his distractors, and supporters, Starling Marte was seen as a good signing at the time, especially with the impending lockout. And why not? If you still have 1 year in your contract and no one's willing to trade pieces for him, why not work in tandem with the incoming $765 million man, $800 million with incentives in Juan Soto? Now, let me ask you this. You have Starling Marte as a DH candidate. Would you stick him there as your everyday DH or as many days as he can play? Would you try to get him reps out there in right field to keep them stretched out defensively? If you were the president of baseball operations, if you were Carlos Mendoza, what would you recommend? Because there really isn't a wrong decision here. On one hand, Starling Marte is capable. He's a very capable right fielder, but then he is getting older. And then, but also you have Tyrone Taylor and Jose Siri out there in the core as well. It's kind of interesting what they plan to do. I would like to know what you think. But the big story over the past 24 hours was Francisco Lindor had a chance to sit down with the press for about 20 minutes and ask a lot of questions, whether or not he feels that the team is heading in the right direction. Spoiler alert, he does. Whether or not he feels it's unfit as business. Spoiler alert, there is. And what I also learned is he looks at his old home runs like how we do as fans. But one question that came up, and I say this with a lot of grace because sometimes these questions, these press reports are kind of lame. But this one was pretty cool. They were asking about the possibility of being named captain. Now, personally, I had just finished reading The Captain, which was the David Wright autobiography, and even though David Wright will have his number retired, he's kind of the captain of my youth. Franco was before him, but the idea of having a new captain in my lifetime is pretty interesting. So when the question was asked, this is what Francisco Lindor actually said. I'm going to put this up first, and then we'll discuss later. He says, quote, "I do feel like I'm one of the leaders of the team, but there are a lot of leaders in this locker room," Lindor told the media Saturday afternoon at Clover Park, Port St. Lucie. Quote, "The captain thing is not up for me to decide. True. If it does happen, it would be fantastic. An honor and a privilege, something I would never take for granted." Wow. "Something that would put me next to the greats of this organization forever. Double wow. And it would be very humbling." Now, sidebar, he means, I hate when people use the word like honored to mean humbled and humbled to mean honored. That's a pet peeve of mine personally, but I get what Francisco is putting down. There have only been 4 official Mets captains in franchise history: Keith Hernandez and Gary Carter, which, if you remember, they had the co-thing going for a bit, John Franco, and David Wright. Wright was the most recent Mets captain whose captaincy ran from 2013 to 2018. But before that quote, Francisco said, "I see myself as a leader on the team as already, and if I was announced captain, things won't change," which just begs or raises the question more accurately: do we need a captain? Now, I, for one, say yes. Francisco Lindor is my captain, but as I was perusing social media the past day or so, or the past couple hours, there are people out there saying the Mets are obsessed with having a captain. Why do we need a captain if everyone's in it for itself? Baseball is a team sport. What's the importance? And I know you guys don't click this link to hear me get on a soapbox, but one of the cool things about being a Mets fan is that you're a Mets fan despite the Mets. And let's be real. There are more losing seasons than winning seasons. We're on an upward trend now. I love doing it. It makes me feel all warm and fuzzy, but I've been through some dark times. And the fact is, we tend to honor those who are torchbearers or flag bearers during those times. And usually you don't have a chance where the team is good and there's an elite player at the same time in our team's history. Either we have a band of really good players that lift the team, or we have like a superstar player, the team around him isn't that good, right? Francisco Lindor is an elite player. He's on constantly everyone's top 10 list, sometimes still underrated, even though he got some MVP votes. I still believe he should have been the MVP of last season because he plays defense, but I guess that's changed. I'm an old fogey at this point. And so when someone shows up every day and plays 150 plus games, I mean, sometimes the entire season, barring an injury or so, and really embodies a team and is a family person and never gets in trouble and really sets an example, why not give him the honor of being a captain? People are coming to him already. We want to be able, as fans, to acknowledge him as the captain. I say go for it. But I want to know what you think. If you think what's the point of a captain, or you don't see Lindor as the captain, if you're Team Nimmo, Team Alonso, this is not supposed to be a forum for you to tell me I'm wrong, because it's all an opinion, but I'm really honest to see what you think of the opposite options when it comes to announcing a captain, if that would be the case. But before I wrap it up, got to give the shout out to SNY TV for actually doing this sweet little graphic of John Franco, the former captain, and recently giving him a ringing endorsement. You think about players who come in every day, who are doing their job well, who become folk heroes in New York, who represents a style and swagger when the team is all the talk of the town. It's Francisco Lindor. And I'll be honest with you, 2 seasons ago, I would have been a Pete Alonso guy. Last season, I was hey, let's make Lindor, Nimmo, and Pete co-captains. But no, there really is a one shining light. I understand you may be hesitant with the Juan Soto thing, but if John Franco says he's a nice captain, then that's a captain for me. Yo, it's been a wild week. Players are filing in. Spring training really starts in earnest over the next day or so. I can't wait to see what happens next. We may actually do this. Cross the fingers. All right, y'all. That's it for me. My name is Flobo Boyce. You're locked into Mets Digest. I'm getting out of here. I'm going to make sure that I'm watching all the press conferences to give you guys the news and notes that matter to you the most. But, of course, as always, until next time, it's LGM to the bitter end.